My screen name was Bend It Like I played soccer, Bend It Like
Yeah.
Beckman. So like that was fun.
Is that
And
your
I'm like,
AIM name?
for sure.
Nice.
What was
Yeah.
yours?
It was
No,
Coolster
it wasn't.
99.
No,
It was.
no,
Yeah, that
no,
was
it
cool.
wasn't.
Yep. I made up a word and I used it for all my usernames. It's sometimes my username to log into
My
websites.
God.
And your password is perfect dad.
Don't give it away to people. They're gonna hack my account.
Coolster 99.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Between Two Coaches. We're on a mission to make fitness more human. Snark sold separately. I'm Coach Amanda, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host,
Coach Nick. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a great episode today. We have our first guest of season 2, and it's registered dietitian, totally unhinged, hilarious content creator and business owner, and Olympic marathon trials qualifier, Kelsey Pontius.
Nailed it.
Hey, we're off to 1 for 1 this season, and we're going to be talking about nothing happens just because, and some topics around the world of nutrition. Kelsey, welcome.
This was the thing on my calendar that I've been most excited to do for a really long time. Like I woke up this morning like today's the day.
wow.
Well, that makes us feel happy.
Yeah.
It's a
Feeling
lot
great
of
now.
pressure because I saw that you were also doing yoga today, which would have caused me more anxiety than this.
Well, we're not now, but that's a long story. That's a long story.
Is that the
You
reason?
can breathe.
Are we the reason why? No, now I feel some type of way about it.
No. I had to go to the DMV at 2:30, Amanda, and I barely made it back in my chair on time. Hence my liquid calories because I know that I have gone too long without nutrition. But here we go.
Yeah, what
Did you
happened
pass your
at the
driving
DMV?
test?
I had to register my vehicle. Also, my husband lied and I didn't know he had that ability because he's so sweet. He said that I haven't registered my vehicle in Colorado and we've been here since August. Nobody come find me. Because now it's registered and you can't. But he was like, yeah, we just got here. But long story short, my appointment was at 2:30 Mountain Time. Hour and a half to be back. And they said it would take 10 minutes. Not 10 minutes. Hour and a half. Crazy.
Not 10 minutes.
Is there a state where we can trust the DMV? That's my question for you.
I thought that Colorado, like, okay, sorry, Floridians, but I just assume everything's better than Florida. And Colorado DMV let me down.
Well, Florida's got that in us. But I can tell you probably New York City and New York's DMV is not great.
No.
Because New Jersey's was
you got to
terrible.
go at an off-peak time during
Yeah. First thing in the morning, I guess. I was telling my husband, I'm like, you do the day off of running first thing in the morning. Like,
Yeah.
that's the
Or you
only choice.
You just run there and you grab your number and you just run around the parking lot while you wait.
No, because then like they had to check my VIN number.
Oh, that's
No.
true. Yeah.
We're not adding disordered behaviors to Kelsey's.
On top of
No,
disordered behaviors.
We're not adding that to her athlete's plate. Okay? We're not. You like what I did there?
I like it. Wait, we got to go back a step because, Kelsey, for people who don't know you, don't know you.
Just three
we know
besties shooting the shit.
Do you want to tell everyone about yourself and a little bit of some of the details?
Yes. So I own Meteor Nutrition. I'm a certified specialist in sports dietetics, and I've had Meteor since 2018, which is crazy. Yeah, it's oldie moldy at this point, or maybe she is just thriving in her middle age. I don't know. And so I actually started off as an athlete, as a soccer player. Nick, I think you know that. And I played college soccer. And rewind to being a high school soccer player. I really want to play Division I soccer. It was like my one big goal in life. And in the most important recruiting year, I tore my ACL. And so I was very interested in like, how can I play sooner? And I came across nutrition and I had never thought about the relationship between what are we eating and how are we performing and what is it doing to our bodies. When I thought about nutrition, I thought about what my mom's friends were doing to shrink their bodies. And so yeah, I just became super interested and curious. And then fast forward to playing soccer, I wanted more minutes on the field. And I was an underclassman wanting to play more. And my position that I played was like really difficult as a freshman to come in and play. And so then I was like, what are the girls that are playing all the time eating? And I couldn't find any rhyme or reason between playing minutes and what they were eating. But all of that to say, that curiosity just kind of stuck. And then nutrition was my field.
We love that. What position did you play? Because I played soccer because everyone in New Jersey plays soccer.
That's
Really?
true.
I didn't know that. I was a center mid, so I'm not, I'm not very tall. And the college team that I played for, we had these two girls from Sweden and they were both 6 foot and taller. And we called them the Twin Towers and they were upperclassmen. So the team was just very athletic relative to like the team I came from was more like skillful and more soccer than like skillful in soccer than athletic. And so in hindsight, I wasn't really a great fit for the team. But yeah, long story short, I remember when I was in college and now I'm aging myself, we had the food pyramid and I'm
Yeah.
still like, what the hell do I put on my plate when I go to the dining hall? Like, I still don't get it. So, and I didn't even know what a registered dietitian was my first few years of college. And so once I found out it was a thing, I was like, ooh, I want to do that.
That's why we all adapted to the Ron Swanson pyramid of food
That's a good reference.
for Parks and Fan Rex. Kelsey, you do a lot of awesome stuff. I always see on Instagram you are working with what is Atlanta Track Club, right?
Yes.
You
Yes. I
work
work
with
with,
many professional athletes. You work with lots of people helping them
She's such a
achieve
bad
greatness.
bitch. It's true.
I think the same
It's
of you
true
guys.
too.
You're a bad bitch, Nick.
It's a huge compliment. Nice. Nice.
Yes, I work with Atlanta Track Club Elite. I feel like we're not going to be able to get any words out.
Words are not correct.
I work with the university I actually played soccer for, and this is really fun because I have their whole program. And so I have fallen in love with other sports just by kind of knowing their nutrition demands. Like I love basketball now because I'm like, I get to know the players really well because it's a small team. And then their demands are so high, and they're like, I'm convinced that they're the best athletes. Like they jump high, they run constantly, they're fast. Um, I love lacrosse now because it's similar to soccer. Like, yeah, I just enjoy kind of because of understanding the nature of their nutrition needs. I think now the sports are more interesting and fun to get to know athletes. College level athletics is really fun, I think. And then I work with Villanova, their soccer team, which is kind of random, but I have their women's soccer program.
That's
Do
incredible.
it all. And like you're right. Like, I mean, I ran D1 in 2000, 2004, and like we had a dining hall and it was encouraged to eat, but there wasn't like, oh, you finished practice here, have this
Yeah.
chocolate milk or this like drink, or like before practice, make sure you eat. Like, we'd just be like, oh, I'd have a snack. I'd have oatmeal cream pies were like what I would devour in college. And like, I just eat a couple of those and then I go for a run and like, didn't
Also
nothing around
eating-
it at that age of
Yeah.
like understanding anything in nutrition, just oh, well, you should eat some food and then you should go run fast.
Yeah, and even like levels of Division 1, like the university I went to, Campbell University, like smaller D1, right? Versus I have an athlete right now that runs for Furman, which has a great running program. And, she gets a DEXA scan every year and she can get labs whenever we want them. And I've worked with a few FSU kids and same thing, like they have their smoothies, their post-run smoothies made for them when they're
Incredible.
done with a run and stuff like that with like tart cherry juice. And I'm like, I can't even afford tart cherry juice. What? And we're dual income with no kids. Like what? So it is really interesting, like based on like resources, and you understand how programs get get the luxury of recruiting the best athletes.
So cool. Yeah, you were right, Nick. She really does it all, and they're all lucky to have her. So diving into today's topic, so Coach Nick kind of he rushed over it. So in case you weren't watching, nothing happens just because is the theme, and it's nutrition edition, right? So what we chatted with Kelsey prior to this conversation to determine what are some topics and subjects that she's come across most recently that she thinks need attention. And we're going to add in some other things along the way. I think it would be good to start with iron and ferritin. What is considered normal but isn't actually, or what is not normal but is considered pretty common in your experience?
Yeah, I think the most important thing. So there's so many ways to answer that question. So one of the biggest things is if you're going to your physician and getting some labs, understanding unless you do get to see a sports med physician, which I'm learning as a provider that like that is privilege. Living in an area where you have access to sports med physicians, that is kind of rare. So if you have one of those, that's amazing because they can help you along with many other things, but they're more attuned to interpreting labs for athletes and not just interpreting labs for people that are just trying to go about their day. Again, just came from the DMV and you see all walks of life where, lab values that you're looking at on a reference range are just like, cool, you can survive today versus you can run 40, 50, 60 plus miles per week and feel your best. So I would say that that's one thing to think about with iron and ferritin. So something that like really frustrates me around like messaging around it is like, oh, we're runners. We just have low iron or low ferritin. And that's the part that like I really wanted to talk about. Like there's a difference between normal and common. And while that is a common I guess, diagnosis or issue that I deal with when I work with athletes and runners specifically, it's not normal. That's kind of like saying it's more prevalent for runners to not have a period. That doesn't make it normal. And so, yeah, I would just, kind of that's the point I wanted to make with iron and ferritin that if your levels are low, it's telling us that there's something else going on and that those reasons can be a variety of reasons and really getting to the root of those so that you can sustainably get your levels up and not just say, okay, well, I go and get an infusion whenever my iron levels are low. Not that infusions are bad, but it can be, unless you're fixing the root issue, kind of a Band-Aid.
Do you have experience with this, Nick?
You know,
That's what I was going to ask you. I'm guessing you're going to share it.
Oh,
as I interrupted you.
Well, not. It's okay. Personally, my iron and ferritins have always sort of been okay. Nothing, not spectacular, but never like around the range, like where I would feel comfortable running. Like, hasn't vitamin D has been more of a problem for me in my life. But what I find is interesting is I feel like a lot of people just, okay, my iron and ferritin is low, I'm just going to supplement. And then they supplement for a little bit and then they say they lax on it and then their iron tanks and they're like, I'll just supplement again. And sometimes as a coach, I don't have the answer, right? And I'm trying to encourage them that like there might be, not always, but there might be something else going on that is why if the second you stop supplementing, your iron drops, right? Or it tanks, right? And like, with women, it's sometimes we notice it the most around like their period, right? Like that time of the month is when they'll have a workout, it will be terrible. And I'll be like right off the bat, and I'll be like, hey, we should probably get like blood work checked, and then it'll be like incredibly low. Or maybe it's not incredibly low, it's just normal, but during that time it's tanked so much that now training is impossible to them, right? And so, I always try to encourage that like supplements fine, but if you're doing it for your entire life, like there might be something else going on, and like there might be a better answer because there are side effects to a supplement, like GI issues some random day or things like that, and taking it at the wrong time with the wrong mix of other life things and it doesn't work. So I was just sharing that I think like to the point of this whole episode, nothing happens just because like your iron isn't low just because you forgot the supplement always either.
Yeah.
I've been not a lifelong runner, but I remember when I was in my 20s and I was going through multiple eating disorders. I remember getting my iron checked at that point. Again, I wasn't active and iron was low. And so the recommendation was an iron supplement. And then I think it was about 5 years ago. So I had already been running for a couple of years. And so I was already 30 and I got my metrics back and I was told that one, my ferritin like was amazing. Like for an athletic person, it was amazing. So I was shocked and very happy. But I also there were many things that had changed since then. One, I had started eating again because I had an incredibly restrictive eating disorder, amongst other things. Like a lot of lifestyle habits had changed as well. So I think but there was no period of time, even though I was getting the annual blood work done, where any doctor had said, because again, I didn't have a doctor that was specific to an active population at the time, who was like, maybe you should get off of iron and explore whatever root cause is actually like it just was not a conversation. And I now know, as an educated both consumer and somebody who works with geniuses like Kelsey with my athletes, that you truly are not doing, I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but your general practitioner is not the person who should be informing your nutrition because they just don't have the education. So it's not that I was necessarily looking for that. I didn't know to look for that when I had been supplementing all those years. So thankfully it wasn't an issue because I wasn't an active person, it wasn't an issue, but I'm just really grateful that I know now what I know.
Yeah, I think that that's like also the hard part. Like, as someone that didn't grow up running too, like you look back and you're just like, oh gosh, that was like not the right approach, or I just didn't know what I didn't know, and you were doing the best with the resources that you had. I definitely have so many examples of that, because same, like, I remember a bout of anemia, and then I was just looking for, like, I probably Google search best iron supplement for runners, like, imagine. And so
Weird, like probably all of you listening to this podcast.
I'm doing it right now.
1000%. And so, yeah. And I think the hard thing is like, I'm not anti supplement at all. That's like why we have them but like, I think the question to ask is like, how much of the gap are you asking it to fill? And to Nick's point, why are we constantly needing iron? And if you're brave enough to ask yourself that question, I think also there's some other benefits and other like victories that you'll probably gain that you didn't even know that you were looking for. Maybe you're looking through it because like iron and ferritin's put on a pedestal for us as runners. But like maybe if you address the root cause of that, like your sleep gets better, maybe it's your anxiety decreases, or just victories you didn't even know that you were looking for if you really attack the root issue and don't just reach for the supplement without addressing the other issues.
Yeah, like, I mean, supplements, again, nothing wrong with supplements, but sometimes supplements is just like the answer, like everything. Oh, my vitamin D's low. Take this one, take this one, take this one. And it's like, at some point, like maybe there's just fundamental issues in your life that you need to address, like Kelsey said. And like also, like, I feel like sometimes people read these labs on their own and like they don't know what they're reading, right? Because like you can have low ferritin and high iron. And if you go supplement iron, it's not really a good idea, right? And like, there's like, many different levels or tests you can get that really tell you what's going on when things don't make sense. Obviously, if your iron's low and your ferritin's low and you get other things checked and it all indicates like that it's bad, then yeah. But like if there's things that are mismatched and you're just like, oh, my ferritin's low, I need more because I'm a runner, let me just chug this pill, and it's like, no, that could be causing you massive amounts of harm.
Yeah.
And, so like sometimes it's, and coaches just encouraging supplements. Oh yeah, just supplement your iron. It's low. Like, don't do that if you don't have a little more education to understand, okay, well, you just got ferritin checked. I don't even know if your iron level is too high. Like, I can't be recommending this to you.
You need to refer
safely.
out, coach. Coach, if you're listening to this, you need to not make an assessment. You need to refer out to somebody on your hype squad. And for us, it would be a Kelsey. Like that's what we do. Like, that's outside your scope of practice if you're a personal trainer and you're giving these recommendations, if you're a run coach, you're not the one, and that's okay. Kelsey is the one though.
Yeah, and we'll put her personal phone number.
That's what we plan to do
in the show notes. You can just call her and ask her. So
love it. I love it. Also, like, I think about this, like when my clients ask me training questions, like I don't want to make a mistake with them. And to be honest, like I went to school for nutrition. Like I want to do nutrition. Like I don't want to, I don't want to write workouts. If I wanted to write
That's what I would
workouts,
say.
then I would advertise myself differently. So I feel like, and going back to like physicians too, they're managing so many other complex issues that like that nutrition is just such a small, or for a part of their training, a small part of their training, like very small part of their training, if anything. And so if they are giving you an answer, then it's a Google search answer at best and not the answer that you deserve. So yeah, and then with iron too and vitamin D, because that, obviously that's a big one for runners. Both of those have toxicity levels. And so full disclosure, I was in addition to working on a lot of other things and trying to improve my iron, which can tank at altitude. Forgive me, it was my first season at altitude. But yeah, like there was a learning curve where I felt like I could do other things outside of supplementing better, but I was in the short term using a supplement. And because I was doing that, I was making myself get labs every 3 months to monitor the efficacy of the supplements I was using, because both iron and vitamin D have toxicity levels.
I had it.
And so taking too much is
So I actually have been told it's been now 4 years, I have not taken a single vitamin D supplement because but I didn't know what I didn't know. And until I worked with, my GI doctor also happens to be a girl I've been strength training with. Like we lift together for the last 10 years. She was like, the symptoms that you're describing, like, let's get this tested. And I just didn't think about it. I wasn't taking an absurd amount of vitamin D. And I wasn't even taking it every day. She's like, you're just one of those, she goes, diet, sun exposure. I don't know what, she's like, you don't need to take it. And every year when I get it tested, it shows that I do not need to take it. So I am, the symptoms for me were just like, and it was strange. Like I didn't think about it. It felt like an appendicitis. I know that there was some sort of reaction happening in my gut. It was pain though. Anyway, that's why we don't do things blindly.
Yeah, and like even if you are, those levels can change, not your iron's not going to change like overnight, but at the same time, like to your point, like I started supplementing in November, and by the time I got to Houston, like we're good. We don't need it anymore. And so how many people that are taking a supplement like have the ability to get labs? Fortunately, I'm working with a new doctor out here that had no problem. Like, yeah, girl, I'll order you labs, whatever. But like sometimes it is like a paying for your own labs, which are expensive, or making another doctor's appointments and having the ability to go and get them and stuff like that. So there's more responsibility, I think, that sometimes people don't realize when we are taking a concentrated dose of something.
Yeah, and I guess the last thing I'll say about, your PCP, like sometimes just share you're an athlete. Like, I shared with mine that, hey, running and I run this level and like I really love it. And, when we would do blood work, he'd be like the same thing. He'd say I had limited nutrition training, but like, yeah, if you want to get iron checked, as long as your insurance will cover it because he knows or whatever, he would put out for it. He wouldn't be like pushing back. Like when I'm like, I want to go to a PT, he wouldn't be like, come see me so I can assess your injury first. He'd be like, I don't fucking know, like go to a PT. Like, so sometimes when you do share with your, obviously insurance, depending what you have matters too, but your doctors can be a little more easier going with you with stuff and like maybe not skirt, but like give you recommendations without everything needed, or like support your running if they understand that this matters to you more than just, oh, I want to make sure, my iron's not in the negatives.
Yeah, and some doctors too are really great at like trusting and referring out to other multidisciplinary people. And so yeah, sometimes you find those gems too.
Well, shall we move along? Our
We can talk
educated
about
badass
iron
Amanda.
all day.
Yes, let's do it. I love that topic. Okay, so the next area, let's chat a little bit about, Kelsey had been speaking with us about this idea that, and the right idea, by the way, that we're not going to be better as runners if we're constantly injured and our labs aren't optimal for athletes, and what else do we have here? And you have poor, what is this bullet point, Coach Nick?
Poor eating.
EA
eating
is
habit.
eating for you. Okay. Eating habit.
Not for me.
Energy availability.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. So why don't
Yeah.
we kind of touched upon it, but let's talk a little bit more about what you see in practice.
Yeah, I think that, a lot of times people will, when they fill out like the application to work with me or whatever, they'll be like, I want to fuel my body and I da 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 da, and I want to lose 5 pounds. And there's like this sneaky little, I think that the messaging is around the sport is getting better. We're making some progress. Some days I feel like we're getting better, and some days I'm like, oof, I don't know. Um,
It's still
maybe
50
I've
50.
like narrated my yeah, I've narrated my feed so
Same.
much. I think that a lot of times people tell me about trends and diets going on, and I am the last to know, even though I should be the first to know. But I think I've just narrated my feed so much that I have no idea. So if you're not a runner that's fueling or a cute animal, I don't see you.
There's bliss in the bubble, though, Kelsey. I would say there's bliss in our bubble.
Okay, there is. Oh my God. Like, I want to see Nick in a pair of tights with one of his athletes.
Pink tights, right?
I wanna see Amanda talking about a bagel shop closing, and I don't know what she's talking about, but all I know is I'm ready to fight somebody and for this bagel shop, and, like, it was, like, over the course of the week, the first time, like, "Oh, that sucks," and then, like, your 5th story later in the week, I'm like, "Who do I need to fight?"
I'm always advocating for a cause.
Sure. I love it. So, I don't even know where I got off on this. Anyway, okay, so they're like, it'll be like a little sneaky that they want to lose some weight or whatever, and that, or a lot of times when I work with, I'll say like the generation like closer to my parents' age, I think that sometimes they just have this idea of like, oh, well, it is going to be easier if I'm lighter or whatever. And the important thing to remember with like wanting to lose any amount of weight, but especially sometimes I feel like it's even more sneaky when it's just like, I want to lose like just a little bit of weight, is that your purpose of wanting to do that, if it truly is to perform better, that you're putting yourself in low energy availability. Like science says, we have to be in a caloric deficit to lose weight. That's just how it is. So already you're going into your training with less resources. To me, that's like forgetting your super shoes, like probably worse, that you're at risk. So in the short term, you're putting yourself at higher risk of injury, less energy levels, less recovery. Like a little bit further out, depleting your labs. So your vitamin D, your iron, those kinds of things, more vitamins and minerals actually. And then within a few months, depleting your hormones. And so you're going to have hormone suppression if you're a female. That role with estrogen, there's a tight connection between bone health and estrogen. Also, other things, not just bone health related, like losing progesterone, that is in charge of like keeping us calm. That's the feel good hormone, allowing us to get good sleep quality, even testosterone suppression in both sexes. Like there's some pretty, I've gotten really used to asking both men and women about their libido because that can tell us a lot about how our energy availability is going. So that's kind of like long term. There's so many things to talk about with repercussions of hormone suppression on both sides. It kind of just depends like what's important to you, but I think hormones run the body. So like when you've had a long period of suppression, there's so many times that I work with athletes and they're like, "Yeah, I did this diet, it worked." And but now I like have poor recovery or I'm more injured or whatever. And they think that the diet, just because they lost weight, like air quotes, worked. So I think that like the most important thing to remember is like the whole purpose of training is to become a better athlete, and your ability to do that is compromised when you have less nutrition or you are in a deficit. I also think like this is like my stabby comment of the day, that like have more confidence in like your natural abilities to like do the training to fuel your body and find that potential than like needing to rely on just like losing a couple pounds, because that is a short-term solution. But if you really believe in your talents and believe in your ability to improve, or even if performance isn't the goal and you want to run because you love it, like you're going to love it so much more when you're fueled. Running when you don't have a lot of nutrition in you is
Miserable. It's
for the
absolutely
birds.
miserable.
It's the worst.
I think that
Yeah.
the other thing that I know we've spoken about, Kelsey, is if you think that you're getting faster using these extreme measures, in the short term, you may be, but what you're doing is actually putting yourself so much further back down the line. you will be spending months, years, sometimes decades getting out of an osteopenia or osteoporosis diagnosis. Full stop. I know it. I know it
Yeah.
personally, that there's the amount of work that you will have to do for your bone health later in life as a result of the stupidity, because it's now I'm calling it what it is. Now it's stupidity, because back in my day, okay, we didn't have these resources, complimentary free resources from providers like you on the internet. And I wasn't even somebody who was active. I couldn't even think about being active at the amount of calories I was consuming. That there now it's stupidity, because you have the world at your fingertips. And if you don't want to hire someone, I get it. But most of you are using your resources to invest in things that are really not as important as somebody like Kelsey. I digress. It's the truth though.
Yeah.
And so like your short-term ability to body check and take a selfie and film a cute video of you running in your matching lavender set, real short term, compared to what you're doing to your hormones, amongst other things.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Amanda. So one of the really, really tricky things is that in the short term, there is like this hormone shift that can happen that your performance does get temporarily better. And so people are like, they taste the Kool-Aid and then they like it, right? And they're like, and then the harder part about it is they stop performing well, and they don't necessarily attribute it to, because in their head their fastest times was still when they were the lightest, but it was they're not acknowledging that it was very temporary. They're just like, how can I get my body back to where it was then? And I'm like, the tricky part is I forget the exact like hormone cascade, but it is hormonal, that like your body in that short term like acute stress, there's a response, and then you a lot of times will have this temporary period where you're performing really well, but I give it a year tops. And like when we think about runners, like most of us don't just want to run fast for a year. Like, and so if you're always living in the past of that year that it worked, like quote unquote worked for you again, then yeah, I think that like you're literally like thinking about when your body was in a hole and not putting that energy into what does it look like when I'm well fueled and supporting my body? What's my natural talents like?
Yeah, and the problem also is like social media becomes an echo chamber for that type of behavior, right? And so like, at the same time it's like there are times in the running world at different levels where like people are trying to chase a goal for a year, like these Olympic trials, for example, like it gets people very excited. And this is when you see people do a lot of this disordered behavior chasing that goal. And then what we really don't see on social media is when those people disappear for the next 2 or 3 years, they're not posting, they're not running, they're in an injury cycle that just doesn't make sense. In most cases they probably ran their body into the ground, they didn't fuel it, they tried to get skinny, and then their performance, which lasted for a little bit, blew up. And then it's always any other external thing possible. But it's also hard because I spent a lot of my time on when I was younger, in my old days, and like sub elite fields. And like I'd start near the front and I would always look like the fattest guy there, right? Using it, but like I was much bigger. They were same height. Everyone had many more abs than I had, and I looked a lot bigger than them. And like it was very hard because sometimes I would think, okay, well, am I too big to be a runner because I'm probably 20 pounds more than some of these guys. And then I did struggle a little bit with, oh my God, do I have to lose weight? How am I going to do it? I'll just like not eat these types of things. And then my performance, like you said, Kelsey, when I got my best, it was when I just relied on my talent, my ability, my training, and said, I don't even know, stopped weighing myself, didn't know how to scale anymore, didn't know. And I just started running and I started getting faster. And yeah, I would notice that I was a little bigger, but I was like, I'm still going to compete with these people. And if I have the right day, I can beat them. But like my body's not going to be the reason I didn't. It was hard. For a lot of time, I spent really questioning if I'm too big to be a runner, if I can handle this, do I need to eat less? Like no one, half my friends were like, I don't even take a gel during a marathon. This was like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when it wasn't, there's only one gel too. You could have goo. So anyway, yeah, to all this, like, it is important to think about like your longevity. It's important to rely on your natural ability. We all have it. It's your ability isn't because you lost 20 pounds. Like, that is your crutch that's going to help you maybe for a short amount of time until something really, really, really bad happens.
Yeah. I think it's just like the scarcity mindset, which shows up in other places outside of like body image. Like to me, that's like scarcity out of fear. Like, whereas working on like fueling is like abundance, like possibility. So yeah, that's how I think about it. But Nick, that's such a powerful experience, man. That's so good. And like, I would never want someone to have that experience, but like, I feel like, and you too, Amanda, like having your own experiences, it just makes you like a step ahead in terms of protecting your athletes.
Yes, thank you. And I think that that is one thing that Coach Nick and I have in common is that we will fight tirelessly for our people to make sure that they have the resources they need to be successful outside of our training together. We want them to be runners and fitness enthusiasts for as long as they live. And so in order to do that, we're not just putting a plan on paper or on Final Surge.
No, no. I mean, those coaches definitely exist. And, not to say that but coaching the ability, there's so much you can do
Yes.
as coaches. And like, I think about like great coaches that I have, and like, it was never about like the 3 by 2 miles. It was you know, my coaches telling me to trust my abilities, or, teaching me like much deeper things than like, hey, go do this workout at this pace. So yeah, that's awesome that you guys, do that. And Nick, I started being a runner when I was a soccer player, and I never thought once about my body image as a soccer player. We were just encouraged. I think it's different now because of social media, but when I was a soccer player, like actually I was just encouraged to be strong and not get knocked off the ball, and I really didn't think about like the size of my body, and there's a lot of privilege in that. But I remember going to my first road race ever, and it was a 5K, and I'm like looking around, and it was my first time like really racing other girls, and I'm like looking around, and I'm like, and like I internalized so many things because I've played soccer my whole life. I'm like strong, and these girls are built a lot differently than me, and so I know what that feels like. And I think that when you don't have like good influence, like there wasn't anybody that was like coaching me out of that for a really, really long time. And fortunately, I had a really good coach that was always encouraging me to eat. But I don't think I like ever told him that like I like emotionally went through that. But I feel like there's more resources now that's like, don't fight your biology. And I think that exists at all levels too, is my point. I know it exists at all levels. I worked with an Olympian last year, very, very good athlete. Like you'd be floored if you knew who it was, who has a different body than a lot of her competition, and constantly fighting her body, the size of her body, constantly. I actually think that like how she's built helps her. But yeah, so always fighting her own biology, and until we worked on not fighting it and fueling, and she made an Olympic team last year.
It's incredible.
Hey,
Yeah.
awesome.
All levels, all levels.
Yeah.
Side note, do you just work with Olympians, or what about us normal people who want to work with you? Are you taking clients?
I am, yes. Okay, so we've talked a lot about like elite athletes, and my sister's my social media person, and she's like but you like don't just want to work with like elite athletes, so you need to make your messaging not just that. I find a lot of joy in working with all levels. There's something really magical about helping someone finish their first marathon too. It's really beautiful, and it's really, really fun. You just get so pumped for them because you also get to walk side by side with them when they're learning how to believe in themselves, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Love to hear it. Were you gonna say something, Nick?
No.
I think we got to address some of the special social media content that we've been seeing from
We do.
not just influencers with large followings and maybe not so large credentials, but also, and so it's an and, both and, folks who are actually credentialed in different areas of sports, whether it's nutrition or a fitness professional, we've seen a lot of injured folks. And there are a couple of levels to this. One, they're kind of like sharing their injury journey on social media. A lot of bone stress injuries we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of, as I like to say, chaotic cross training sandwiches. No sauce on the side. No one is putting the sauce on the sandwich, and they really need to be. If they just put the sauce on the sandwich, we may not be in this place had they not asked for the sauce on the side. Okay. You ever think about that? Did you ever think about that? So we're seeing a lot of that. Are you, even though you and I live in the, and I think Nick does too, but maybe a little less. You don't?
I don't.
Oh, you're out of the blissful bubble?
Out there everywhere. I see it all because I want to see it all. And
I'm the one who gets forwarded. He's like, have you heard? He's
Yes,
like, have
same.
you?
I'm out there.
Fit Guru 321. I'm like, no, she doesn't exist in my blissful bubble. I don't know who this is. And then I go to her, and then I'm appalled because I see all of these people who follow me, who follow her, and I'm like, what are you? We are not the same, ma'am. Lauren, why are you following both of us, Lauren? You know better.
Lauren, did you read the content? Did you read the graphic? The free advice?
So have you, even though we exist in the blissful bubble, I'm sure that you get forwarded this content either by, Coach Nick here or one of your clients or followers. So in your, what have you been seeing, and what do we wish they knew? The people who follow them and the people themselves.
That's the most concerning part, is the people that follow them. And there's something attractive and alluring about these people, whether it's how they look, how their body is, the fact that they have a little bit of privilege and make pretty content, that they have time to make pretty content. Like, I'm like, good God, I'm with clients 10 hours a day. Like, I do what I can, but most of the time it's an offbeat dance. And we're doing, or I'm like telling my husband, can you film me while I run? Cause I have zero time to make content. And that's like the only natural thing that like I'm doing. Or it's like me working on a weekend, which I don't really want to do that. So it's like people that have good content look a certain way, whatever. So they already have this like attractiveness about them, which is a little bit chaotic, as you said, just like their cross training. But you guys, like, to this point, I think it's super hard for me to watch this cross training. I was training for the 2020 Olympic trials and wasn't doing it perfectly. To this point, I qualified with, you had to run sub 245. I ran 244 to put it in perspective, fittest I've ever been. Had plantar fasciitis pretty bad. I would feel differently during that period than what I did during the injury. I think it's why it took so long to heal. Full disclaimer. That's when I was an RD and not a sports RD. Difference. Concerned with chronic disease. So anyway, where I was going with this, I was out for a year and a half, tried to do the aqua jogging, read the thing, you have to do it twice as much, whatever. I made it a month, and I was newly dating my husband. I'm like, this actually isn't good for our relationship. And the relationship is more important to me than my fitness, which I also think, like, thank God, that's also a healthy decision.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to show up at the Olympic trials because I ran 244. So let's think about big picture. We're not making a team. Like, dream big, but also there's room to make those kinds of decisions for yourself. For a year and a half, I told myself, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get a Peloton. I'm going to ride for an hour a day. I'm going to still take a rest day. One day a week, I'm going to ride for 90 minutes. At the Atlanta trials, those hilly, windy, 30-mile-per-hour winds.
So cold.
I didn't start running until Christmas Day before the Olympic trials in February. I ran 248. And my 244 was at CIM on a perfect day. So like all of that to say, this chaotic cross training, like, is it really building fitness? Because if I can do Cody Rigsby's class for an hour that like you laugh more than you sweat, the 1 90-minute class and still a rest day. And like, I think 249 at Atlanta and 244 at CIM, those are similar performances.
Well, they're the same. I was there. Yeah.
Yeah. Similar performances. Then like, you really, what is this, all this cross, is it burning calories? Is it just about burning calories?
And also, and just from what I'm putting on my group fitness instructor hat, because I coach hundreds of people a day, and these are people who are going not just from like my cycling class. They're not coming there just from cycling. Like they're on the elliptical for 30 minutes. So I'm talking about like general population fitness enthusiasts, where there's this like idea of like, okay, I'm doing 30 minutes on the Stairmaster. I'm doing a 45-minute class with Amanda, and then I'm gonna walk on the treadmill at an incline for another 20 minutes. And I'm like, and I think, and I'm watching them, and some of them are obsessively just checking their Apple Watch, right, to see how high their watch is telling them their heart rate is, what their calories burned. They're walking on the treadmill for a certain amount because calories burned on the treadmill, which I'm saying all of these things like with a smile on my face, because we know as professionals these things are not accurate. So if you're listening to this and you're like, what? Yes, not accurate, including your watch's heart rate monitor and calories burned. So it's almost as though when I'm watching them, there's like tension in their body, and I'm seeing them, they can't relax.
Yeah. They can't be present.
And I think that what we see with a lot of these influencers is that they've really relied so heavily on their sport as not just a physical activity every day, but an identity and a behavior in which they don't have to be still with themselves. Where, yeah. Go ahead, Nick.
To say, like, you to touch on that even further, like this is a business, right? They think so, they're the brand, right? And the brand can't stop, right? And it's not like you create some business and then you market the business. The business is you, right? And so when we're seeing these BSIs, these bone stress injuries on these people, and they're calling it overuse injuries every time because no one wants to admit there's ever low energy availability, especially if they are, a dietitian or someone in that world, because you can't hurt your brand by showing that you don't even follow the things you're telling people to do, right? And so, you have to look at this stuff and realize that like what you're watching people do, this chaotic cross training, nonstop a need to always be moving or training or doing something. This is just some person who is, the brand is what they're selling. And this is like, you almost have to take it away, and they're not a human being. They're just like a product that's creating entertainment for you. And they're going to keep doing it until their body breaks, right? And like you should not follow that. Like that's not training advice, that's not eating advice, that's not any model to follow. It is them just trying to market themselves in some way.
And like the grit thing that sells, but like I don't know, I have so many hot takes about oh, look at me, like I'm just training so hard. I think that my diet, like putting my dietitian hat on, when I'm walking someone through injury healing, one of the best things that you can kind of work on is your energy availability, which is just simply for our listeners, like how much calories after you expend a certain amount through exercise do you have left over that your body can kind of undergo this like basic function. So injury healing would be a basic function. And so one of the things that you can do to improve your energy availability is actually to decrease your demands. So it's kind of a red flag for me, and I say this all the time, and this surprises people. If you've had a BSI that like requires you to be out for several months and your weight doesn't change at all, to me, that's a red flag, because, I think that like, hey, like you don't have to maintain fitness while you have an injury. Again, it goes back to the confidence thing, but like we don't have to maintain fitness. And that was kind of where I got with my plantar fasciitis. I was like, we don't have to maintain fitness. Like you'll be ready when it's time to be ready. But there's more to gain with decreasing the demands. And so if you're cross training like a maniac, then your body's going to not have as much energy to heal that injury, which is why I think that an influencer that we're kind of referencing on repeat MRI, it's not healed because they don't have enough energy left over because of this chaotic cross training, maybe paired with eating habits, to heal a really big bone in their body that shouldn't break unless it's being really stressed out.
Yeah. Just a lot of irresponsible. Maybe this is why we have a Patreon that we're launching, Nick, because I'm there's going to be less dancing around on that channel, okay? There's going to be more. There's going to be less of this. There's going to be more of that. If you thought we were unfiltered.
It's going to be like Lauren Runs 45. No, Coolster 23. Did you see what he did?
That's right. That's right. We're gonna just randomly call Kelsey when she's at the DMV. Kelsey, we need your soundbite, and we're just gonna slip it into the Patreon.
That is the worst version of me. I was like, I had to like stand up and take deep breaths, and I was like, this is so out of character because you're being so just the thoughts in my head, the judgment, you guys. I'm not a judgmental person, but I had airports and DMVs just like the worst version.
Yeah, and a post office will do it to you if you don't have a label on that package. A post office will do it to you. So will Trader Joe's at 3 p.m. next to an elementary school. I wouldn't know. Yeah. I wouldn't know.
Or if they're out of Scandinavian swimmers, like Trader Joe's is gonna hear it from me.
Good thing I'm childless because I'd be not well right now. Okay, yeah.
A question, Nick, as a father, and I promise we'll go back to people that aren't eating enough and cross-training. As a father, have you ever said on a Sunday, you know what I should do today? I should bring my whole family to Trader Joe's.
No, never. Never.
Why are we doing that? I'm like, I understand that you have to take your kids places
somewhere.
Why is mom and dad both at Trader Joe's with the whole family?
Right.
No, I don't know. It doesn't that's not even, no one's having fun there either. Like, we're not getting the grocery shopping done. The kids aren't happy. No. They don't want to be here. Like, instead, I order groceries. Again, I have the luxury of being able to click a button on my phone and order groceries. I don't want to go to the grocery store. And then we take our kids to some place to get all their energy out, because once we finish the grocery store, they need to go somewhere else. So it solved nothing but just make everyone upset. And so
you're right.
But they do put a lot of stuff in the cart that they won't eat later because they aren't going to eat shrimp bites. But
that's fine, right? And that's honestly where, and I'm speaking on behalf of Kelsey and I. That's a you problem at that point. What they put in the cart is a you problem. Do not make little Timmy a me problem. When I'm wheeling this cart and I'm focused on getting to the Honeycrisp apples, why is he coming across the cart 60 miles an hour?
The mini cart with the mini cart.
I'm going to injure your boy. And I didn't mean to, okay? I didn't know that I had to have a driver's license in order to get around Trader Joe's on a Sunday. I'm with you on this, Kelsey. I'm with you. Send all of the hate mail to me. Okay, send it to me.
That should have been of our grievance.
Well, that's
bullshit.
That's how this is season 2. We're just going off script, but that was our grievance, right? Check it off. Yeah, so I think that's where we're at. Is there anything else we wanted to share on the influencers just really should not be the educators or the informers?
Only to make it full circle of like really be really skeptical when there is an influencer. If someone is saying that their nutrition plan is a supplement and they have a following, they're getting paid for that. So when they're like, I've worked on my nutrition during this injury and it's a bunch of supplements, that's a sponsored thing. That's not working on your nutrition. Also, something that while it might be difficult, I don't know why there's so much pride when it comes to energy availability. To my point, I made a post last week and I'm like, about me working on my iron. And one of the things I needed to work on was energy availability. I'm a human. Like, fueling can be intentional and unintentional. And either of those is being a human. Like, I moved across the country, was trying to set up a business. My nutrition needs are higher. Whoop. Now we need to work on energy availability. That's okay. And so I think that if you are following someone and they are being transparent, and I think that that's good news for my clients because I get to be a guinea pig and learn and be like, oh, cool, my ferritin like tripled in 3 months when I did that. That's amazing. And I didn't change my iron supplement, And so I think that, when they're not admitting that it is a nutrition thing and they're being so prideful about it, that I don't know, if someone needs to work on their like we all need to work on our nutrition. It's a practice. Like, nobody has perfect nutrition and there's nothing wrong with needing to work on it. But to make it more, go ahead. Sorry,
there's almost more pride in like people this today to like, I have a bone injury. Like, look how hard I worked. Like it's almost like that's more prideful. Like, oh my God, I didn't eat enough of my I have an injury. Oh, what are you doing wrong? Oh, but I ran so many miles that my bones just shattered. Wow, you're so dedicated. That's amazing. Way to go, tough guy or girl. Like there's just so much pride in bone injuries, it feels like these days, when I'm like, I don't want a bone injury, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, it's like, and when you look at it, it's like, hey, like a lot of these, like I think the two influencers that we've referenced, their nutrition needs are probably over 3,000 calories a day, and they're busy people. Like, consistently doing that, I understand like you do need to commit to that and be responsible for that. But like, I can understand how that might be difficult for someone of consistently fueling over 3,000 calories a day. Maybe needs a little bit more attention to detail, like I needed. And like, hey, that's not you're not just going to get there without strategy, right? And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why there's so much pride with needing to kind of work on those things. But to make it full circle, one of the things that happened with one of the influencers is they have a bone stress injury and now they're posting about their low iron. And all of these people are commenting about, like, yeah, I have low iron too. We're runners. Things are not random. Things are not random. They don't just happen to you because you decide to be a runner. Those two things are very connected.
And that sums it all up. Nothing happens just because with
Yeah.
Kelsey.
Yes.
But that doesn't sum it all up, does it, Amanda? There's a secret season 2 interview questions coming.
You better ask them, Coach Nick. I know this is your favorite
Here-
job, Kelsey.
These are
Yes.
Kelsey, you ready for these? Because these are secret questions.
I
Our
mean,
guests have never heard them.
maybe not ready, but let's go head first.
All right, let's go with question the first. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Is okay. I really love this advice. I've been thinking about this person a lot because I have been practicing yoga a little bit because my mileage has been down, and he got me into yoga in Florida. And when I was starting my business, one of the things he asked me, and I thought this landed really well for a runner. He's a yogi, but for a runner is I was scared to start my business. I knew nothing about starting a business. And I was like, can I do this? Do I go and get a safe job or do I start a business? And he's like, count up how much your bills are. And so I did that. And then he was like, okay, my life was really simple. You need $2,000 a month to make it. And he was like, you can find $2,000 a month. And I think it's like run the mile you're in, be present. Don't get so much like you don't need every client, or you don't need to PR your workout tomorrow to run a great race. It's kind of that, and I think that it's really easy to get ahead of yourself. I definitely get ahead of myself, and it was just like a really good reminder of like, hey, what do you need to do today? Do that.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. And I always tell people, like, workouts are about gaining fitness, not proving it. So the same like kind of idea, like you're just trying to get a little quicker every day. You're not trying to like win every single workout or like run the PR in the workout when your race is 6 months away. So love that advice. Question number 2. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
So that my husband eats like a teenage boy. I made it on TikTok. This was like a trend going on. That was like my emergency contact. It was
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, and so I filmed him mashing a Pop-Tart into his ice cream, and I wish I could tell you that, like, it was staged or it was just like a
That's
no,
him.
he does
Okay,
it every
good.
day, and, like, we always have junk food in our house, like, at all times we have not to call it junk, but, like, we have, like, traditional, like, oh my gosh, you have Oreos, Ho-Hos, Pop-Tarts, chips, like, ice cream, like, I have
Oatmeal
all
cream pies.
cream pie, oh my gosh. Also, his taste in these types of foods are questionable. I'm like, this like bunny ho-ho thing is really not that good.
I don't even know what that is. I'm gonna have to look this up after.
Nutter butters, like the whole gamut. I'm like, give me a bakery cookie or
Right.
a bakery item. Right. Give me good ice cream. Anyway, we have all that. It is like I habitate with a 16-year-old boy. And to
That's
that,
illegal,
I know. Maybe cut this part out. I don't know. I'm not into 16-year-old boys.
I'll
um,
cut that part out.
for sure.
Depends on.
Anyway, sorry about that. Serious. Cody, though, to that point, I think that Nick, this is a really good point. So having bodies that are a little bit different than like the traditional runner or whatever, my husband is thin and nothing he'll ever do will change that. So we call that thin privilege. But because he has thin privilege, he is a very intuitive eater and it comes very naturally. So while I also joke that teenage boy, he also will like just like feel like eating like a healthy thing too because he has this innate ability to listen to his body. And our relationship together, I used to not like fun foods in the house because I felt like I couldn't trust myself. So firsthand exposure, we have all the fun foods in our house, and it's such a great learning curve because like my clients that are afraid to keep things, or they're like, I just don't keep it in the house. I was like, we need to work on that because I think that
Yeah.
there's beauty in coexisting with fun foods and learning how to trust your body. So my husband taught me that because we have all the fun things in our house at all
We
times.
love when husbands teach badass women
Sure.
things. So there we
Yes.
go. Go
My
husbands.
husband,
Yeah.
also named Nick, is a very intuitive eater, and that
Yeah.
was like when we met. I was coming out of multiple years of eating disorders, and although I was similar to you, like I was doing well. The nutrition was going in the right direction. To have the flexibility and the freedom of somebody to just say to me like, yeah, of course we're gonna get that. We can have a little bit of that. Yeah, of course you should order that. Without like the second thought. Such a saving grace, those husbands, when they
So
so
healing.
great. It is so healing. Healing husbands.
Go
Go.
husbands.
Not all husbands, but ours.
Well, the
Three
three
husbands.
husbands,
The
yeah,
three
yeah,
present husbands.
and me.
The three kings.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Here we go, Kelsey. The hardest question. You're doing great so far. Question the third. What's something you wish more people understood about your industry?
Hmm. I think that like, gosh, I'm like torn between two things.
Is it between two
You
coaches?
said it was the hardest.
It is, yeah. I hope she gets it right.
Okay. You said one. Am I going to just give you one answer? I think that like how thoroughly we're trained. For example, I worked with an athlete, current client that has type 1, and during it he's like constantly telling me, but you have to remember I have diabetes, but you have to remember I have diabetes. And I'm like, yeah, like that's, if anything, I'm trained better in diabetes than I am in sports nutrition because like at the core we're trained in medical nutrition therapy, where we are essentially the same track as pre-med, and then we get like the next layer is all of these nutrition therapy classes where we learn how to manage chronic disease on top of via nutrition and therapeutic diets. And so just how, thoroughly we're trained in terms of like chemistries, biologies, all of the core anatomy, physiology, metabolism, like all of those things. And then we apply it to nutrition later parts in our training. And then we do essentially an internship where we're getting a lot of hands-on experience that's like similar to a residence in different areas. So I would say that, and like not just like followers, but even like my own family.
I like it.
Yeah,
That's
that's
a good
very
answer.
good.
I'll tell you what, you got 100%. So
Thank you.
great job.
First,
Everyone does, but you also did. So you're right there.
My plaque's in the mail.
Kelsey.
Put it right
Yeah,
there.
there it is. There it is. There it is. One more time, last name, Nick. One more time.
Nope. This time. We're keeping it
Okay.
100% this season.
Okay. Very good. Wow. Kelsey, before we sign off, tell everyone where they can find you and how they can hire you if you're taking clients. I think you said earlier. No, because you're an important person to have in our listeners' corner, any capacity that you can be. So give it to us quick.
I'm on Instagram as sports dietitian Kelsey. I do have a private Facebook group. It's not that it's not exclusive. It's just like a group called Endurance
Oh, I'm
Sports
gonna join
Nutrition.
it.
If you join it, can you like my stuff? Because I feel like
Done.
Instagram is so much more fun because people comment.
I'm in there.
It's chirp chirp. It's chirp chirp. But sometimes people will be like, I found you from your Facebook group. And I was like, you
Ooh.
couldn't like my post? Because it's like, well, I'll get like one like and it's probably like my mom. So there's that. And then I think that's the extent of social media. If you are interested in working with me, I do have a website, is meteornutrition.com. There's ways to find an application, and same thing that with like link in bio and Instagram.
That sounds fabulous. Fabulous. Well, thank you,
Yeah.
Kelsey, so much for being on with us tonight, and or this morning, if you're listening to this on your long run. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, dear listener, and you can reach out to us, all three of us, at any time. You can reach out to the podcast at betweentwocoaches@gmail.com. Patreon coming soon. We will have that recorded for you sometime this week, right, Coach Nick?
We will.
We're looking forward to launching that. So stay tuned, everyone, and we will see you all next time.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for having me.